we getting close to the release of the Rune DLC? And how massive or minuscule do you think its scale will be? Welcome back, my fellow gamers. It's me, Amanda, and I did not mean to rhyme in that opening statement, but I did. Today we're going to be counting down the top 10 scary things we know about the FNAF Security Breach Rune DLC. Let's jump into it. Number 10, available on all platforms. This is good news because it means that no matter where you bought this game, you will be guaranteed this DLC if you want it. But on the other hand, it could be a big part of the reason behind the delay we seem to be feeling or experiencing when it comes to the Rune DLC. I feel like it's been so long. I actually had to be like, oh man, how long ago did this game come out? I had to re-look it up. I forgot. It's so long ago now. Basically, it has been over a year, and we were kind of expecting, I think, that the DLC would be here sooner, perhaps already even. The more platforms a game or DLC is released on, the more time it's probably going to take the game or the content to be completed. This is because each port requires a little bit of tweaks, and these can be more or less tweaks depending on the engine that you're using to build the game initially with, and if that engine is better for PC or console, and if it's not good for one or the other, you know, what level of tweaks are we talking here? Big ones, small ones, what are we talking about? Releasing something on multiple platforms also usually means that one of the platforms at least is going to be a bit janky upon release. Although I feel like glitches in games bother us less now, as we've become accustomed to all games and video game content being some level of buggy upon first release, so, you know, maybe we don't have to worry too much about that, but I don't know, Security Breach was pretty janky. Gonna be real. Alright friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Gaming, if you want more FNAF content, let us know by clicking that subscribe button. When you subscribe, we get closer and closer to Rune DLC. Actually, I heard for every time you click subscribe, like you can click it, unclick it, click it again, keep doing that back and forth, a week gets knocked off the Rune DLC timeline, so it'll be here sooner. So click it. Number 9. How many is too many? Speaking of multiple ports across consoles, it's important to note that likely part of the delay for the Rune DLC was thanks to Steel Wool Studios also busting their game developing butts to get us the Xbox version of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, which actually only came out late last year, if you could believe that. That's right, that's almost a year after the initial release of this game. Sorry friends on Xbox. And the other thing that might cause you some worry to know is that Steel Wool Studios, following their work on Security Breach, is not necessarily prioritizing the Rune DLC, as the studio is actually also working on multiple titles now, having branched out to work on other projects at the same time, so it's not just FNAF, including things like Hello Neighbor 2 DLC and the game Hello Neighbor Search and Rescue. The only good news here is that they have also worked to expand their staff, doubling in size, so that should basically help them, I guess, to work on multiple projects at once and still remain just as, if not more, effective. At least that's what we're hoping for, and I'm sure that's what they're hoping for too, so fingers crossed. Number 8. The protagonist has entered the chat. But who is she? Other than seemingly being the protagonist based on her stance in this poster with her little flashlight, we don't really know who this girl is. Is she Elizabeth Afton like many people claim because they think her hair is blonde? Is it even blonde? And if so, if she is Elizabeth Afton, how is that even possible? Or is she someone totally new? And if so, will we like her more or less than Gregory? Will she be just as sadistic? Will she matter to the lore, or will she just be some random character that doesn't really develop? Also, is Gregory coming back? I mean, he's on the poster too. He's probably coming back. I have more questions than answers for you on this point, and for that, I am sorry. But also, that's kind of just FNAF for you, I suppose. Even when we think we know things, really they are all just theories that we take at face value as facts because, well, I mean, otherwise we'd really know nothing about these games. And also, I mean, that's part of the fun. We like to try to follow the clues and then try to figure out what the facts are or could be plausibly. Something that I think could be true and would explain some of the red coloring perhaps on her shoes as well as the purple is that the little girl could have some connection to Vanessa, aka Vanny. I think that could also be a thing. I don't know if other people have been saying that. I haven't been deep into the theories in a little bit, but I feel like I haven't seen that one yet, so I don't know. If that's new, let me know. If it's not new, let me know who else is saying it, because maybe I should watch their content more, because I'm vibing with that. Number 7. Vertical Slice completed. In an announcement that Steel Wool Studios shared on their site, they mentioned that the process for Security Breach Rune was going well, and that they were moving ahead of schedule. But don't get too excited. They simply stated, and I quote, "We don't have any gameplay details that we're ready to share, but we can talk about where we're at in development. Pursuant to growing our processes, the security breach team spent significant time in rigorous pre-production process, focusing on streamlining our ability to construct fun, stable gameplay. So far, this year, we have delivered on our vertical slice milestone earlier than planned and are ahead of schedule for a major upcoming development milestone." What does that mean? What is a vertical slice? A vertical slice, or VC, is basically like a pitch for a game, a concept of a game. This is what game developers use usually to get investors hooked on the game in order to, raise enough funds, collect in the money so that they can then, bring that game to life. So, what does that mean? It simply means that Steel Wool Studios has their concept down. Well, not only that, it was actually completed ahead of schedule. So, while that's, promising to hear, ahead of schedule, we like that, it is a little frightening to know that they reported this in November of 2022, so it's only a few months ago. So, if that just happened, and we don't really have a clear timeline for when the VC was completed, admittedly, we might still be pretty far out in terms of design and gameplay features, because, that's a concept. So, we can work with that, it's something, but it's not like, oh, in like 2 weeks it'll be done, just polishing it up. Number 6, it's free? I think this is one of the scariest things I've actually heard about this DLC, and I'm gonna tell you why. I know what you're thinking. Amanda, don't we want this DLC to be free? Isn't that nice? Then we save money, which means we have more money to undoubtedly spend on more video games, yay! And aren't we owed this in some way after Security Breach was not quite as good as we expected? First of all, no one is really ever owed almost anything. You paid for a game, you got a game, if there were parts you didn't like, that's unfortunate, but it doesn't mean anyone actually owes you a thing more than what you got. Unless it was, it may be helplessly broken or unplayable in some way. Then they probably owe you something, because you bought a game, you don't really get a game because you can't really play it. Secondly, I'm worried about Runes being free because it makes me think it will be shorter than what we're hoping for. And granted, it's been in the works for what feels like forever. If it releases in December, it'll be like 2 years since the initial release of Security Breach. But what if it's not a whole other additional story? What if it's like just cosmetics somehow or something ridiculous? Or like a small extra chapter? Like what if it's 10 minutes of game? I don't know. When things are free, it just makes me nervous that it's because the product can't actually be considered worth paying for. Because why are you giving this to me for free? I'm just a person, someone's like, this is free. I'm like, what's wrong with it? I don't know. I've been burned too many times from free content and items, I guess. Number 5, a new foe, or perhaps a new ally. Some have taken to using the poster to basically decode what this game is really about, when it takes place, who's in it, who's the main character, who are all of the characters. Of course, at the end of the day, it's just a poster, so it's kind of hard to accept all of the wild theories and all of the things people seem to be coming up with to answer these questions, but one that I do feel has some merit and that we can classify as kind of a no on some level is the new enemy that people are spotting in the poster. In the top left corner of the promotional poster, if you haven't seen this yet, there are 2 glowing red eyes, or what appear to be red eyes. We don't really know if they are, but they definitely look like that. Now, while Vanny also has red eyes, so did the blob we saw at the end of the game. And many are thinking that these eyes seem to kind of line up with the seemingly amalgamated blob entity we saw a little bit more than Vanny, which I also personally see. Interesting counterpoint though to this being the potential main enemy of the next game. What if this is actually our ally in the game? After all, the blob did kind of save our butts in the end in Security Breach, whether intentionally or simply because it had its own vendetta against Afton. I'd be curious to know why specifically. If it is our enemy, it wants to be our enemy, especially if we're playing as a nameless girl who maybe has no connection to anything. Unless maybe this girl happens to be an Afton, and then, maybe. Did she do something terrible though? She's just a girl, so I don't know. More sadistic than Gregory, she is just like William Afton, murdering people left and right. Goodness. Number 4, 2023. Okay, this isn't too scary, admittedly. This does mean we can probably expect the game later this year, at some point, right? Well, What if that isn't true? After all, dates get pushed back all the time, especially when you only have a month and a year expected release date for video game projects. And this is a project that we don't even have both of those things for as of yet. All we know is the year, 2023. I also just feel like not having even a month guideline means that it's likely we're not going to see this game for a while, or this DLC for a while. Even if it's not pushed to next year, we could have to wait until maybe the end of 2023 in December to see the game. I mean, if we only know it's being released this year, it could be released, keep in mind, as late as December 31st, 2023, because that would still be 2023. And that honestly feels right now, that feels really far away. Like it was just December a minute ago, so we got a ways to go. Maybe not scary, but definitely a little bit depressing to think about when it comes to just how little we know in terms of this DLC's release date, or you know, lack thereof, I guess I should say. Number 3, not just a concept. Here is something that is less scary to ease the revelation of where Steel Wool was reported to be at in November with this DLC, and how they basically were just past, you know, that concept stage. They went on to say in their announcement, the vertical slice build was the very first one in my career that was a complete actual VC with functional versions of all the gameplay elements and systems we'd intended to build. Our team is absolutely crushing it, and we couldn't be prouder of them. We're fired up and can't wait to share more with you all. This is more promising because it kind of seems like their VC is more of a realized concept anyways. However, once again, I would take even this moment of brief celebration from Steel Wool's executive producer Ray McCaffrey with a grain of salt, because the fact that a vertical slice exists could also be a sign of danger ahead when it comes to what's going on with the Rune DLC and honestly the game studio, Steel Wool Studios itself. Number 2, Dissillusionment. A vertical slice isn't just a tool to be used for developers as a guide when they're building the world and creating the game or the DLC. A vertical slice can also be something that's actually requested by investors. In fact, this can happen when investors actually have no real knowledge of the video game industry and what goes, you know, into building a video game more specifically, or when the investors simply don't have a lot of confidence in the project based on the knowledge they do have of the studio and their body of work, or you know, the project in question itself. There's just something about it they don't get. Basically they're like, we'd like to see more information, like we need a pitch. If this is the case with Rune, and of course it very well might not be. The VC could, you know, just be for in-house development, or it could be a routine part of their process in relation to their investors. This could be an indicator that either investors are attached to this project who have no clue what is getting made here, or worse, they don't have a lot of confidence in what's being made. So, it's possible. Number 1, silver lining. Despite this being a scary list, I feel like I need to end this on a high note, because at the end of the day, as FNAF fans, we're all hopeful for the continuation of the video game franchise, and you know, we want to see it succeed. Successful adaptations, games, DLC, all of this only means that we have a better chance of getting more and more quality content for years to come. Fingers crossed. So, what I want to add is that although the vertical slice could be something for us to be worried about, generally speaking, it seems for Steel Wool to be something they actively wanted to improve on, because in that same announcement from November 2022 where they updated us a bit, they discussed changes they made as well as things they wanted to personally improve on. One of those things, a major point in fact, seemed to be for them that they wanted to focus on their pre-production process. Now, why is this important to note? Why does that even matter? Interesting story of the security breach game, its plot and the execution of said plot. It's easy to see how this could actually kind of be the result of poor planning actually. Like some of the issues in this game could be because their planning phase wasn't as great as it could have been. Same with some gameplay features such as the vastness of the map, which wasn't really utilized as much as I think we'd all hoped it would be, with whole areas designed and built into the massive like mega pizzaplex, but seemingly existing without really having any purpose to serve in the game. Which, you know, you could go there and explore it, but like you don't really do stuff there. So hopefully they're figuring out those kinks. That's all the time we have for this video. Thank you for watching. Until next time, keep on gaming on. Pew pew!